Hi, my name is Tim Morgan, and I am going to be talking to you about Open Broadcaster Software, or OBS. So what can I do? What is this software? What can I do with it? Okay, why am I here? So, Open Broadcaster Software, what we're looking at right now is being created using Open Broadcaster Software. So, for example, I can cut to this slide, if you like, with the Humboldt University logo on it. I can cut back to myself with some information across my chest. I can remove that. I can cut to slides. So it's a very versatile piece of software, and it enables you to pre-set up different what we call scenes, and we'll talk more about that later. And basically, you can just keep kind of moving through these. So it gives your presentation or how-to video. It makes it very kind of rich, very kind of multi-leveled, if you like. So let's have a look at some slides, and then we can I can just sort of guide you more, if you like. This kind of first bit, so what are we going to cover? We're going to cover, first of all, some sort of tips, really, on how to get the best out of using OBS, but this is really around lighting and audio. These are kind of key concepts, if you like, because it's not something that we often think about. We think about the slides we're presenting, but we don't necessarily think about the way we present it, if you like, the way we look ourselves. So, okay, so let's just sort of begin with that. So OBS, what is it good for? So as I mentioned, it's good for creating how-to videos. YouTube is awash with how-to videos, and I'm a big fan of them. I work in education, so I work for Central St Martin's, which is an art university based in King's Cross in London, and I work on the distance learning programs. So how-to videos, they're something that I create on a regular basis, and pre-recorded lectures, the next bullet point, that is something that my colleagues create a lot. And so this is something that I know that they are going to want to use. To be honest, I haven't used this very much myself. I'm a kind of a newbie, if you like. One of my colleagues at Central St Martin's is a great advocate of this, and I know that it's also used here at the Humboldt. Now, last but not least, live streaming. Now, this is a very exciting thing that is being used really by everybody all over the internet. It's used, by children, by educators, by gamers, by pop stars. So, to know that you can kind of tap into that world with this software is also pretty exciting. Now, also good to know, so as I mentioned, it's endorsed by the university here at the Humboldt. It is used in the Grimm Centrum. I have been over to have a look at it and used it in the One Button Studio. It's compatible with Mac, Windows, and Linux. So you simply just download it from the internet, and it's free to download. So where's the catch? Okay, so right now I haven't found any catch, but if you find it, please let me know. So, okay, let's have a quick look at the interface. Now, this slide here, it looks a little bit, that looks like there's a lot of information going on, so I'll try and kind of simplify things. If we look in the center of this slide, we will see quite an exotic picture. It looks like there's sort of desert, palm trees, that type of thing. Now, I think that this is some kind of gaming shoot-'em-up type environment. I got this picture from the internet, so I'm not completely sure. But then bottom right-hand corner, we have an image of the person playing the game, and so that would be the guy's webcam, just as I'm using my webcam for this recording. Now, and I'm also asking this question: broadcaster or editor, and we'll come on to that in a moment. So this is just to try and highlight the way, the structure, if you like, of the way OBS works. So you have something called scenes, And a scene is essentially an empty container. And the sources are the things that you put into that empty container. And so here, when I look in the sources, I can see that there's a game audio. So that means that he's tapping into some kind of audio. This is probably coming from his computer. The webcam, we've already identified the webcam image, which is bottom right-hand corner. And then there's something called game. And so that implies that this is he's probably taking a screen feed from his computer as well, and this is how he has chosen to lay it out. So you can see that if we sort of step back a moment and look at the way I have laid this out, I am top right-hand corner, and then I've got slides on the left-hand side. His approach is different. He is bottom right-hand corner, and he's smaller. So you can see how flexible this software is. You can change the scale, change the location, etc., and change the elements. And then number 3, start recording. So this is how you actually start to record start to make your recording. Now, I'll just go back a second. I asked this question, broadcaster or editor? Okay, now this is quite important as well. What is OBS and what is it not? So it is not an editing program. There are plenty of editing programs out there. Some of them you do online. So for example, in YouTube, you can edit, that's kind of part of your YouTube account. You can edit video relatively simplistically. And you can also buy tools, you can also buy software to download. So in my work, I use Final Cut Pro from Apple, but there's many different bits of software out there, some paid for, some free. Okay, so, now this is also very important. So for this tutorial that we're running, I have already made the files available on Moodle, and you will see the way I've set this up. I have a folder called OBS, and in fact, when I look within that folder, I can see that I've got other folders and files. And OBS, you don't import things into OBS. It's not like PowerPoint. You link to things, so it's actually more like a website. Well, I don't want to confuse you, but basically, you're linking to things. You're not embedding things. What that means is that if you put your folder somewhere else or change the name of your folder, then you will break all the links. So that's not a bad thing, but it's an important thing to be aware of. Okay, so lights, camera, action. Okay, so the movies. So as soon as you start using a webcam and recording yourself, recording your voice, you are going to need to be aware of a few basic principles. Okay, so let's start by looking at something great. Now, if we look at this, the larger picture in this slide, I don't know if you recognize this person. He is kind of a major celebrity in the UK, Jamie Oliver. He's kind of passionate about cooking and a lot of kind of like social causes. Now, when we look at this image and we compare it with the webcam images on the other side, you can see he looks great. He looks great. He's well lit. He looks dynamic. The camera angle is somehow interesting. This is from a TED Talk, and I can tell you that this is no accident. There is a team of lighting engineers. There are, multiple camera operators. There is a, somebody who's kind of. There'll be a lot of post-production, and there will be somebody who has sort of made this look like it looks. So trust me, it's no accident. Whereas on the other side, what we're going to see is something that is quite the opposite. It probably is an accident. And in fact, if we go to the next slide, you can see that these people have no idea how they look. They're simply focused on. These are some of our students on the I think on the MBA program. They could be MAs, whatever it is. It's one of our distance learning programs. And they are busy communicating with each other. They're not thinking about, is the background good? You know, am I too dark? You know, is the color making me too dark? Or, you know, like, where are my shoulders? You know, these people are not thinking anything like that. If we just go back a second, you can see this sort of shot of myself. I'm actually, oddly enough, wearing very similar to clothes that I am wearing today. And in fact, if we go to this picture here, this is also pretty interesting. So when you're thinking about lighting, you need to think about the light in front of you and the light behind you. So on this right-hand image, my face is being lit by the light coming in through the window. Okay, so that's sort of, given all my options here, that's probably my best bet. On the left-hand side, and this is completely interesting, this is the same image. You know, I haven't moved anything around. All I've done is I put the light on. And you can see the impact that putting the light on has. It's thrown me into sort of like into silhouette or into shadow, or it's like stolen all the light, if you like. It's taken the focus away from me and put it onto the light. That's just the way the camera is trying to understand and compensate for different light sources. So just something to be aware of. Okay, we covered light. Now audio. Now this is make or break. So nobody wants to listen to something that sounds tinny, sounds quiet, sounds kind of muffled, and people don't want to hear somebody who's sort of saying and all the time. So this is something that I need to be very conscious of, because it's something that it's a habit I fall into, for example. So, audio quality. I am using, so in the middle of this, on the right-hand side of this slide is this, it's called a Yeti microphone. It's a Blue Yeti, it's just a brand. It is something that is used by podcasters and is relatively inexpensive and gives you relatively good quality. I'm using it right now. We use it at Central St Martin's for the online classrooms, and it's generally pretty good. So I paid roughly around £100. I think they're probably about 120 euros, give or take. It's a great investment if you're serious about doing this. If you were super serious, you would probably want to have what we find on the left-hand side of this slide, and that is a sound studio. But in reality, we're not all going to have access to that. So that's you know, a nice to have. But in reality, having something like the Blue Yeti, and it doesn't have to be the Blue Yeti, there are other options out there. It just happens to be one that I think is particularly good. Okay, so that is a quick run through of a few tips and tricks, what OBS is, what it isn't. So the next part of this is going to be actually hands-on. And the great thing about this session is that I'm going to kind of walk you through how to create a template, if you like, in OBS. And that will be something that you'll be able to use, you know, as many times as you like. So the slides I've used for this presentation, I can just take those out and I can put different slides in, but I can keep the proportions for everything. So I can still have my webcam in the top right-hand corner, still have the slides that sort of scale. I can still, you know, I can still have myself full screen. I can just change the text within this banner here, put in a different logo, and you can see that I can have something. I can basically just keep reusing this until I want to try something else. So that's the great thing about it. You can kind of focus on the quality of your slides. You can do that in PowerPoint, and then you'll always have this kind of OBS setup that you can use as and when. Okay, so let's get going. First of all, if you haven't already done so, please download OBS. The web address is below. And basically what we're going to be building now is we're going to have, build our template. It's going to have a logo to start with. It's then going to have your webcam plus some text and a bar at the bottom and a logo in the top. Okay, let me just start again. So if you haven't already downloaded OBS, please do so. The web address is below. And let me just show you what we're going to, the template that we're going to be building. So we're going to be starting with having logo full screen. Then we are going to have webcam plus logo plus title bar. And then we're going to have slides plus webcam. Okay, so let's get started. Now, the first thing that we need to do is to create a new scene or a scene collection. So I'm going to go to scene collection and I'm going to go to new and I'm going to just go video tutorial. And once we do that, all the kind of the content, if you like, is going to disappear. So this is like a blank canvas. So that's called a scene collection. Now it's also going to be useful when we set this up. If you go to preferences, if you have downloaded it here in Germany, then by default the language could well be Deutsch. So if you just change that to English. And in terms of video output, this would be my suggestion. This is high definition. If your computer is able to cope with that, then please select that. If not, you can select something. There are various options. You can select something smaller. Okay, so I mentioned that scenes were a little bit like an empty jam jar, if you like, or an empty jar, and that you then put things in them, you put the sources in them, and that's exactly what I'm going to demonstrate. So to start with, we are going to create a new scene, and we're going to put in the Humboldt logo. So I'm going to put I'm just going to give the scene a name. And so you can, this sort of demonstrates quite nicely. We've created that, but there's nothing there. So now what we need to do is to actually locate the Humboldt logo. And this is where it becomes useful to demonstrate how things work. So I've already asked you to download the files from Moodle. And I have this folder here called OBS tutorial. Yours might be called something different, but in it I've got two folders. I've got one called logos and I've got one called slides. And in slides I've got, these are all exported from PowerPoint, and I can show you how to do that if necessary. And these are just a series of logos. So, and the one that I want is this Humboldt GIF here. So I go to sources, and I go to plus, and I go to image, and having done that, I will just call this Humboldt logo, and then click OK. And then I just browse, just as you, I'm just sort of using the file picker now. I'm going to go to desktop and OBS tutorial, and logos, and Humboldt. Okay, good. Okay, and that has actually come in full size. You do have, if this were too big or too small, you are able to sort of rescale it using the corners. So that's good. Now, what I have now is I have the logo, but if I wanted to speak over this, I don't have an audio. I don't have any audio. So I'm going to get that as well. So again, this is within the scene called Start Humboldt logo. I'm going to click plus, and I'm going to click audio input. And I'm going to say computer audio. And the reason I'm calling it that is that I might have multiple sources, in fact, which I do. I'm recording this using the Yeti microphone, but for demonstration purposes, I'm going to select built-in microphone. and then click OK. Having done that, you can see that this then appears within the mixer section. You can see that the audio is live. So that's good. Now I'm pretty happy with that scene. It's got an image, it's got audio. That's good. I think I can move on. So I'm going to add a new scene, and I'm going to call that webcam with title bar. Okay, so again, there's nothing there. And I now need to add things into that scene, and I'm going to do that through the sources area. So I'm going to click plus, and I'm going to click on video capture device. Video capture device. Here we go. And I'm going to call that webcam. And click OK. And I can just select. If you can actually link up multiple cameras to your computer. I just have one camera, and so that is the reason why all I can see is FaceTime HD camera. And this, I can only select it smaller, so I'm just going to leave it at that default, and I can just rescale that using the corner there. I'll just make that full screen. So, okay, I've got the webcam. Let's get the audio. So I'm going to click plus. I'm going to click audio input, and I already have an existing one. So all I need to do is click OK. That's good. I need to select it and then click OK. That's good. So now I want to have a title bar, and I want to have some text on it. So let's start by adding the text. That's this free text tool down here. And I'm going to put name and click OK. And I'm going to add name here. And let's just look at the size. So I'm just going to collect that. I'm going to set that to 55. Click OK. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. White is good, so I'm going to click OK. Add name here. And then I'm also, I want to have some more text, which is going to be add title. So plus. And tool and title. Okay, good. So I can't click name, add an existing, because this is going to be a new text area. So select font. I'm going to set this to 55 as well, and OK that, and then title here. Okay, so now you can scale this using these corners just as you can with the video and the pictures, but what I found is it just pixelates the text. It's not a good option, so always do that by going in and clicking on the text itself. And in actual fact, let's just see how I can make this name text a little bit smaller. If I feel that's too big, I can just, let's say if I set it to 40. Okay, good. So add title, add name. I guess for consistency, it would be good if I change that to a capital as well. Okay, add name here, add title here. Okay, perfect. So now I would like the title bar. So let's have a look at doing that. I'm going to click plus. And I'm going to click color source, and I'm going to call this title bar. Good. Okay. Now I know that my screen is 1920 wide, and I'm going to set this to 130 and click OK. So now I have a white bar. I'm not going to run it to the end. I'm just going to move it kind of across to here. But that should be wide enough for me to get both bits of text on. So I am now going to, what I'd like to do is I'd like to make it black, and I'd like to set the opacity so that it's so it's slightly translucent, that you'll be able to see stuff behind it. So let's have a go with that. So with that, we're going to try something new, which is we're going to control-click or right-click and go to Filters. Click plus, and I am going to go to Image Mask Blend. I'm just going to leave it as the default just for the sake of it. Okay, now this is not the one to use. This kind of throws me every time. I do want to remove that. Okay, let's try this again. I am going to go for color correction. Okay, so color correction. Leave that as default. Now this is by far the easier way to do it. So I am going to change the color, and I'm going to set it to black. So that's the first thing I'm going to do within color correction. And the second one is to change the opacity to 80 and close. Okay, so you can see, perfect. So it's in front of the text, but you can see that it's in front of the video as well, and it is translucent. So how do we move the text? So the way we do that is we move the title bar below. So this is all kind of hierarchical, and I can move add name here and add title here. Okay, so I think there is some fine tuning that we can do, but essentially this is going to give you something you can work with. I think that the title is definitely too big. Okay, good. So now we are going to add the slides, again within their own scene. So let's go File, and okay, let's go down here, Scenes, so plus. And I'm going to call this Slides. Slides and Webcam. It's good. And again, it's kind of empty. So first of all, I want to get the webcam in. So I'm going to click plus, and I'm going to click Video Capture Device. And because we already have the webcam set up, that's fine. Now I don't want this to be full screen. I'm going to want to make this smaller. So I'm just going to have it like that. But now I actually want to bring the slides in. So I'm going to click plus, and I'm going to click, so before we've used this image, but now we're going to use image slideshow. And we haven't already got an existing one here, so I'll just call this slides, and okay. And now I'm going to have to navigate. This kind of threw me initially. I couldn't find where the setting was, but you have to scroll down, and then I'm going to click plus and add directory, because I can just add the folder. It doesn't need to be, don't need to select them individually. So select slides, that's good. Okay, that's good. But also here, you want to take out loop, and you want to take out, is there anything else to take out? Yeah, not automatic, manual use hotkeys, and we're going to look at hotkeys in a moment. So click OK. So right now this has come in very big, so we're going to need to reduce this in size. Okay, but that is pretty straightforward. Okay. Now, okay, that will line up there. So I'm just going to have that something, so have it set up like that. Now you can see that because this video is underneath the slides, it effectively crops the video. So I feel quite happy with that, but equally I could change the proportions, make that a little bit bigger. But I think that for me is okay. So I'll make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, okay. I mean, you can spend all day doing this, but essentially that's the type of look that you want. And I'm happy that the slides are over the webcam. There is a way of reducing the actual proportions of the webcam, but in this instance, it's not mission critical. Okay, so we've set the slides up, and we've got the slides in and the video, but we don't have a way of moving through the videos. Now, by default, you move through the scenes using the up and down arrow. So when I select the scenes and I click the up arrow or the down arrow, I'm able to move through them. So when we set up hotkeys to move through your slides, you can use the left and right arrow, or you can use whatever you like. So let's just go ahead and look at that. So we are going to go to hotkeys. Okay, so we're going to go to OBS and we're going to go to Preferences. And then we are going to go to hotkeys. Now this looks somehow a little bit confusing, but I'm going to try and walk you through it. So we are looking for a scene called Slides and Webcam. So let's look for a scene called Slides and Webcam. Slides. Okay, perfect. So it's right down at the bottom, Slides. So I am going to go next slide, and I'm just clicking the next arrow. Previous slide, I'm going to click the back arrow, and then I'm just going to click OK. And what that has allowed us to do is now when I click the relevant arrows, it will actually take me through the slides. So, okay, and for example, if we wanted to have like an end scene, so we have the Humboldt logo, we could equally have that as an end scene. So if we just look at what we've got at the moment, we've got the Humboldt logo, we've got webcam with titles, we've got slides, webcam. Actually, what would be very good is why don't we duplicate this scene, because in a sense, you're not going to want to see the name of the person and the title indefinitely. So let's keep the webcam, but get rid of that. So the easiest way of doing that is to duplicate this. And I'm right-clicking, and I've selected what I want to duplicate. I'm just going to click Duplicate. And I'm going to call this webcam, just webcam. Okay. Okay, now something that I've just realized that actually within the webcam we don't have the Humboldt logo, so let's get that. That is very important. Okay, so we want image and logo round. Okay, good. And browse. And going into the logos folder, and here we go, Humboldt disk. Okay, that's good. And again, we can just scale that to size and just move it around. So that's very much like if you use Photoshop, if you use Illustrator, or it's a very kind of simple way to move things around, scale it and move it. So what I wanted to do now was to duplicate this scene, but take out the title and the bar and the text. So let's just go ahead and do that. So to do that, I'm going to Control-click and duplicate, and so I'll say webcam, no title bar, and OK. Now the great thing is that creates, it's an identical copy. I'm going to move it up by selecting it and clicking the arrow, and then within the sources, I'm just going to click on the eye and just unclick the items that I don't want. So now when we use the arrow keys to go through the scenes, you will see that sometimes I've got additional information, sometimes not. So I think that's a nice to have. And then finally, to end on the Humboldt logo, I think that would be useful. So again, we would do exactly the same. We would select, right-click, duplicate, and I'm going to call this Stop Humboldt logo, and OK that. And by default, that's put it down at the bottom. Now, interestingly, because we've duplicated it, we've not only got the image, but we've got the audio. Just want to check. OK, so here we haven't got the audio, so that's pretty important that we have that. So audio input, existing computer audio select, that's good. And put everything there, everything there, everything there. Okay, well, I think that this is probably a good place to leave things. There are additional features that we can look at, and should we have time, we'll do that. But this is kind of a bare bones approach, and would be able to give you, you know, a good quality pre-recorded lecture result. Okay, thank you very much.